Gonna start in 3, 2, 1. CG is going to be the theme that explains three things. One, why K-pop is by far the greatest contributor to this problem. Secondly, why the harm of standardization is very severe and likely to manifest, hurting vulnerable actors, therefore warranting this opposition. Three, why standards are inherently bad, and even if they have certain benefits, they are still ultimately harmful. Substantives. 1. Why K-pop exclusively is a very harmful entertainment culture for feminism. We would like to bring up the problem in which the agency and the audience forces these women to act as such in K-pop, act in certain ways to meet up these standards, right? Even in the case that opening opposition brought up, where a variety of beauty standards exist, this still showcases how agencies are pushing these idols to tender to these audiences, therefore creating new sets of standards, right, to their ideal form and to their perfect form. Even if they say there are inspirations, the main thing they sell is still the standards. People will still try to live up to them, to these role models. All of them are also sponsored by beauty products and etc. So the problem still exists. Just in different kinds of forms, right? Opening opposition also states that condemning one standard will be very harmful. We said that this is a strawman argument. Notice how our outcome is obviously that people no longer need to be so confused in whatever they pursue. Whatever their pursuit is, whatever body or face or behavior they want to have, that is, and this is okay to have, right? That is exactly the narrative we are pushing. The difference is that people will no longer be allowed to shove these standards to your face. You can decide for yourself, removing the unnecessary burden for you, right? So it is still okay if you still want to be like these white, like K-pop idols, right? It's just that there's less pressure from you coming from anywhere, right? Secondly, we propose that the most troublesome factor of this equation is the follower base of K-pop itself. This is yet to be explained by any team. K-pop grows to be a culture that is closely liked by a lot of people. Its followers are hardcore committed, such as ARMY, Blink, and ONCE, to name a few, right? Their commitment to defend and promote their culture and their role models is tremendous. This is very crucial in understanding the gravity of this motion. This is what OG fails to contextualize, right? And why the harm does not manifest. It is not just any standard. The standard is effectively multiplied and made into a monstrous bandwagon. It becomes a widely accepted rule in our newer generations and younger women. You can only fit in with your other friends only if you can see to these values. They cannot avoid getting trapped here. They also cannot escape the scrutiny of those around them, right? They are very vulnerable actors. Now, how will hardcore followers respond to this motion, to this opposition? Assuming that this idea is initiated by a part of the feminist community, a fight between feminists is bound to happen. Since these followers are mostly younger women, however, which are more likely progressive and open to feminist ideas, they will not necessarily abandon the whole feminist movement because there is still something in it for them. What will happen is discourse between those who agree and those who don't. It will, however, succeed since abolishing standard is inherently a step in the right direction. Showing support for those trapped in these standards will give them the strength to stand for the cause rather than to succumb to these standards and fit in the society. And fit into these other friends that are diehard followers, right? We know that the road is hard and there will be trouble in between. But we never said that these standards are an easy thing to abolish, right? Yet it is very important for us to abolish them. Therefore, principally, as women that are enlightened of the harms of these kinds of standards, we need to bring light to it and argue on behalf of it and save these other women that are trapped and even future generations that will be entrapped in this kind of society that is furthermore imposing standards on you, right? And this is exactly why we think that these kinds of follower bases are very extreme. They can push a lot of these vulnerable actors to their very edge and give them a lot of problem and a lot of pressure, right? To further prove this point, why, even if Thirdly, why even if there are benefits to these standards, this is still bad, right? We're going to be the team that explores why these standards are very bad for women based on their characterization. So, problems each woman is different. Duh. It is not okay to assume that everyone necessarily has the willpower or can afford to focus on their own beauty. There are often cases in which they have an ideal metabolism, which results in very hard pursuit of these standards, or simply lottery of birth prevents them from doing so. It could also be that they are only comfortable when behaving a certain way that does not live up to the standards that exist in this K-pop culture. Right? We think that standards in it by itself is a very harmful thing, and it shouldn't be a thing that exists in humanity at all. Right? We think that this is very bad and this needs to go away. This point is very important because it proves that we need to abolish any standards. Doesn't matter if opposition says there are various standards, we do not want standards or role models. Notice how even if the opposition is going to argue that these kind of standards are actually okay for a multitude of reasons, including health and so on and so forth, we have already told you how some of the people cannot cater to these needs. And in the end of the day, what they will get is a double degree harm, in which one, they're not able to live up to the expectations, and secondly, they are being pressured by the society, providing even more mental damage towards what should be okay for them to not do, right? We think that everyone should be okay doing what they want, and this is exactly what feminist movement try to fight for, right? Standards are also bad for a multitude of reasons. Standards can also intoxicate our other agendas, just as fighting patriarchy, because it essentially partially justifies expectations towards women, for example, as a mother, or other kinds of expectations, for example, in job fields, what kind of job you take. These kind of things are also standards. Therefore, we think that it is very important for us to fight this one big entity of a standard that is very widely accepted by everyone, and further proving the point that these standards are very harmful. And we need to abolish this together as the feminist movement. Vote for government. Thank you.
My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. OO said that this is the chance to open opportunities by people who want to self-actualize themselves, but why self-actualization never be achieved in OO in the end of the day? Because when they are starting to self-actualize based on certain person that they inspire, it will never be enough. For example, I really love how Jenny looks. I can follow her makeup, for example, but it is so hard for me to dress up like Jenny in this country, and it is hard for me to dance properly like her. What will I receive? First, judgment, because people will say that you get inspired by Jenny, but in the end, your effort is so useless. You cannot be Jenny in the end of the day, right? So there are two scenarios that could happen to me. The first is that I tried at my maximum power to be like Jenny, buying more clothes, join any dance training, and etc. But it will fail in the end of the day because I'm in the end not self-actualize myself, but I try to resemble Jenny in the end of the day. The second, I will get stressed because of the judgment that I receive in my daily basis because I try to be Jenny that really inspire me, right? Okay, maybe there are some person that easy to get satisfied by knowing their limit that, oh, in the end of the day, I cannot be resembles Jenny, for example, then this is enough if I can follow her makeup. But in the end, what we want as a feminist and a CG as well is that women should be proud of herself, not pity them if they cannot achieve a certain standard that being imposed moreover by this K-pop industry, right? And also, my contribution towards answering the opening bench as well. The question coming from OO that never being answered by OG is that how beauty standard in K-pop industry is now progressive. There are a diverse parameter of beauty. For example, Hwasa and Lee Hyori for their dark skin color, and Moonbyul and Amber for being masculine, for example. And there is still a lot of other examples, right? But why in the end is still bad in the end of the day? Because if you search by default in the Google, for example, it mentioned to you that mentioned you before that the person who against Korean beauty standard. It means that even if you have a skin color like dark skin color like Hwasa, you are not being labeled as a dark skin color person. Rather, you are being labeled as a person who are not fitted with the Korean beauty standard in the end of the day, and it will really hurting you because in the end you are not getting any acknowledgement coming from the society, moreover of your friends, because of you cannot be like Hwasa in the end of the day, right? And the second is that they still imposing the standards in the end of the day. You are still living for that standard. You want to be like Hwasa just because you have a dark skin color, but in the end you never get acknowledgement because you have to get trained in order to have her muscular arm, for example, or you have a good voice to begin with in order to be received in your society and etc. So we think is that it is very impossible to really follow this kind of beauty standard that being sold by the Korean pop industry to begin with. Another contribution coming from CG. K-pop industry doesn't mean we have to always talk about beauty standards, right? We are also regret the K-pop industry as well by two. The first is that how in K-pop idol behave. It's really toxic when people try to make their idol as a god. Means that when someone have a bad action accidentally, they will condemn them. For example, in Irene Red Velvet case, that Irene being tired and being mad to her stylist, then suddenly the media and people outside Red Velvet condemning her as a bad person just because she want to express she is tired and she is getting mad. And how one member of C Girls who left the group because she is pregnant outside the marriage and people try to condemn them. This is really toxic where they impose how women should behave, how they should be nice, how they should acting cute, how they keep the virginity and etc. Meanwhile, our goal as a feminist is that we want to uphold the women's rights that they can be free as what they do to their body, for example, or how they behave, and feel free from any judgment coming from the society. Moreover, coming from the standards that it is still very impossible for every single woman to fit into these standards in the end of the day. And the second would be what we regret as well is that the competition between person in the K-pop group, for example. There are a variety show about idol audition. You try to support a certain person, but in the end, when you support certain person, it means that you also devoting some other person, right? In the end, you are not respecting how this person actually already giving effort, for example, to pass this kind of audition. For example, that they really met at the YG because of Momo. They really met at GYP because of Momo passed the audition for becoming Twice member because they think that Momo is not deserve the position in the Twice to begin with. It's really toxic when women judging other women that they are not deserved for the certain level or the certain position in the end of the day. And this is really bad for the K-pop industry that portray you that actually, oh, this is a person that actually hardworking. Oh, this person is lacking of effort, for example, and etc. Right? We are really regretting this kind of nuance that could be happen if how the K-pop industry works and they give any exposure to the media, to the society, that actually society didn't know how actually the person works, how actually they sacrifice something in order to be themselves, right? This is really disrespect even between women to begin with. Meanwhile, our goal as a feminist is that we want to encourage each other by saying that, oh, you are already having a good effort, and it will never happen if the K-pop industry still works, because in the end, when we talk about K-pop industry, it's always about the competition to begin with, to be an idol. Or even when you are being an idol, you have to still compete with other idol. So this is really toxic, and we're not respecting other people, moreover other women. So that's why we're really proud to propose.